Hello and good evening, everyone, and welcome to our new digs at York University. Welcome to our October Recreational Astronomy Night of the Royal Astronomical Society Toronto Centre. My name's Tom Luton. Paul Markov is away this month, so I'll be running the show. Can I just get a show of hands from the folks here in the audience? Is anyone here for the first time? Yes, you all are here for the first time. Welcome, and welcome to everyone who's joining us live on YouTube. So we've got quite a few things going on this evening. Andy Beaton will be discussing the sky this month. Charles Young will be talking about DIY power for your equipment at a dark sky site. And then Frank Dempsey will be giving us two small presentations, Frank's portable stray light shield and Mercury's salt glaciers. And then we've got announcements by me at the end. Once again, thank you to our technical team of Inio, Ward, Andrew, and Betty who make this all possible. And we'll start off with Andy in the sky this month.
Hello, my name's Andy Beaton. I observe the sky from downtown Toronto under the worst possible conditions, thus proving my dedication to the business of astronomy. And I'm talking to you tonight about what we have in the sky in the upcoming month. Those who have seen me talk before will recognize the list, the big picture, key dates, the sun, meteors, aurora, the moon, planets, asteroids and comets, a double star, variable star, something in the deep sky, whatever's happening in spaceflight this month, and what we do under the terrible conditions when it's cloudy. So, starting off with the big picture. Looking west tonight, just after astronomical twilight. If we're looking just a bit to the southeast, we can see Saturn. Otherwise, we're seeing all our favorite summer constellations slowly slipping away. Spring constellations like Boötes and Corona Borealis are just setting. The Milky Way constellations, they're past the zenith and on their way down. But way off to the east, we've got our favorite fall constellations rising. If we come back the morning before our next meeting at 5 in the morning and look to the east, we can already see our favorite spring constellations starting to show up. Leo and Virgo, and not much in the way of planets arriving at this time. Mars is the only thing that's coming up in the southeast. Other than that, our favorite spring objects and all the galaxies that we find in Canis Venatici, Coma Berenices, and Virgo. So important dates coming up between now and the next meeting. We actually have two new moons. We have a full moon, a super moon on October 17th. On November 3rd, daylight savings time is ending. We have Orionid meteors peaking on October 21st. And if you're living in the South Pacific, I don't know who's tuning in from around the world tonight, but if you're going to be down there, Antares will be occulted by the moon on not only October 7th, but November 4th as well. So with the sun, nights are getting longer. Astronomical twilight is ending at 8:20 EDT tonight and starting at 5:20 EDT in the morning. When we get to our next meeting, twilight ends at 6:18 EST and then starts again at 5:05 EST. So we've got a longer night. Good news for you astrophotographers who need a nice long observing window. The sun is very active right now. Watch for sunspots and prominences. I didn't get a chance to have a look at the sun today before I came out, but the last time I did, which was a couple weeks ago, there were a ton of sunspots. So I'm expecting that keeps on going as we're at a busy point in the solar cycle. We've got meteors coming. The Orionids are the big ones, 20 meteors an hour. Unfortunately, the moon will be pretty bright at the time that it's peaking, so we're not going to have a great show. There's a few minor meteor showers. That's 10 meteors an hour or less. The Southern Taurids, the Epsilon Geminids, Leonis Minorids, and the Southern Taurids. And below that, we have meteor dribbles, less than 2 meteors an hour. For those, I wouldn't actually bother getting out of bed to go and look for them. But if you're out there observing and you see a meteor, try and trace it back to see if it's a member of one of these small and obscure showers. Now, on October 8th, we also have the peak of the Draconid meteor shower, and that is something called a variable meteor shower. So it could be as many as 10 meteors an hour, or it could be as few as 0. And we just don't know what we're going to get until you're out there observing. So if you're out and you're seeing meteors, see if they look like Draconids. Because the sun is good and active, aurora could show up anytime. I understand there was a class 7 solar flare yesterday, which is a sign that we might have some fantastic auroras coming along. I don't have any further information about whether it's going to hit us or not. Spaceweather.com. Check it on your phone or your computer. It will have the latest updates. It'll have maps of where the aurora are showing up on the surface of the Earth. If you're under the picture of the light of the circle, get outside and look up at the sky. The picture on the back of my display here is from our last huge display. My older daughter out in BC took that. I'm very proud of her. I did see the aurora from downtown Toronto. It looked more like cirrus clouds than this, but the fact that I saw it from downtown Toronto, I mean, it was one heck of a display. So we got the moon, new moon on the 2nd, first quarter on the 10th, full moon on the 17th, last quarter on the 24th, and a surprise bonus second new moon before the next meeting. October 2nd is the apogee. That's when the moon is at its farthest in its elliptical orbit, closest on October 17th. If you're looking for a nice simple science project to do, try taking a picture of the moon at these 2 times with the same equipment and edit them side by side so you can see how different the size of the moon appears from the Earth at different times in the orbit. If you aren't bugged by the term supermoon, I actually kind of am, but I understand it's good for getting people excited about astronomy. We have a supermoon coming on October 17th, where the perigee and the full moon coincide. And this is apparently going to be the biggest moon of the year. So your people who are just learning about astronomy, get them excited about that. Then we have another apogee on October 29th. On October 9th, we have the lunar X, and what we have here is 2 craters side by side, and when the sun is hitting them at a certain angle, the crater rims light up in the shape of an X. It doesn't mean anything, but it looks neat, and it's worth having a look at. The straight wall, another lunar feature that looks really neat when the light's hitting at a certain angle. Evening of October 11th. Have a look for that then. So we have the rocky planets. Mercury is going to be in the evening twilight as we get towards the end of October. Then it will vanish. Venus is close to the horizon after sunset, but it's going to be at a weird angle from our point of view. So it's not going to be very high above the horizon by the time it disappears. It is going to be gibbous. It's going to be like a waxing full moon, only smaller, and it will get brighter and higher as we get further into the autumn. Mars is actually going to be the best of those, the rocky planets to look for. It rises not long after midnight and earlier throughout the month. It will grow to about 9 arc seconds in diameter. And once it starts getting that big, I mean, the last time we looked, it was something like 3 arc seconds across. So you could see it was there. Once we get to 9 or 10 arc seconds, then we can start seeing ice caps and features on the surface. Something I have never managed is spotting Mars moons. The best way to do that is to build yourself an occulting eyepiece, which you can read about on the internet, or wait for Mars to pass by the wall of a building or a pole and see if you can catch the moons just outside Mars when the planet itself is hidden. I don't know anybody who's actually seen it directly when looking at the planet itself, but give it a try. We have the gas giants. Jupiter is rising around 1025. It's insanely bright. It's minus 2.5 magnitude. You can't miss it. It's so obvious that even my friends who don't know anything about astronomy point at it and say, hey, what's that? We've all seen the 4 big moons, I hope. If you haven't, they're visible in binoculars. But I know there are a lot of people here who are bored by the Galilean moons. Give Amalthea and Himalaya in the 14th magnitude range a try. Saturn rises before the sun is, before twilight is finished and will be up all night. Also pretty bright, 0.7 magnitude. The unfortunate part about Saturn is the rings are very close to edge on. You won't be able to find ring gaps, at least I couldn't. It doesn't look as spectacular as it did last year, which is unfortunate, but it's still pretty neat. I guess March is going to be when it's totally edge on. Good time to look for moons and weather on Saturn, but people looking for the rings are going to be disappointed. Moons of Saturn are interesting targets. There are 7 moons brighter than 13th magnitude, which I could see with an 8-inch telescope. Titan is obvious. The others are less so. You'll probably want some kind of astronomy software to be able to identify them. The ice giants way out in the middle of nowhere. Uranus rises around 8:30 in Taurus, just brighter than 6th magnitude, so easy with binoculars, even possible with the naked eye if you know your sky well and know where you're looking. It's about 4 arc seconds across, and the Observer's Handbook lists 5 moons that an amateur's telescope should be able to find, a largish amateur telescope. I am always puzzled by the color of Neptune. Sometimes it looks blue and sometimes it looks green, and sometimes I can't really tell. So I'd be interested in what you people observe. Post it in the comments on the YouTube show and let me know what you think. Neptune rises before sunset. It's in Pisces. It's just brighter than 8th magnitude. It's even smaller. You're not going to see any surface features on either of these planets, but you should be able to see a disk. Triton is the only moon of Neptune I've ever seen, and I don't know if anybody has ever seen anything else in an amateur telescope. And same problem I have with Uranus. I can't tell if it's blue or if it's green. Same question to the people watching. Tell me what color you think it is. The dwarf planets. I hope Nicole isn't watching because she thinks Pluto's a real planet. Pluto's in the sky all night in Capricornus, 14.5 magnitude. I've seen it once back when it was brighter than 14th. It's tough. The best thing to do is get it by imaging. Take images over multiple nights and look for that tiny moving dot. I shouted, "I have seen Pluto" when I saw it. You're entitled to do it too. The other dwarf planet we'll be able to see is Ceres in Sagittarius. It sets before midnight, about 8th magnitude, and it moves rapidly. So an interesting project with that is to watch it as it moves 5 arc minutes a night from night to night. We've got asteroids. I like asteroids because I like to see something new and different every time I'm out observing, and there are so many asteroids I haven't seen that I will never run out. There are a half dozen asteroids brighter than 10th magnitude currently. If you're interested in tracking them down, I can't really show you a picture in a slide that will help, but coordinates are available in your observer's handbook or in most planetarium software. So we have a big comet, C2023A3 Tsushinshan, I hope that's how to pronounce it, Atlas. I'm hearing predictions that will be as bright as third magnitude. I've heard many comet stories in the past. I'll believe it when I see it, but I'm still going to go out and try and see it every opportunity. Mid-month, it should be coming into the evening sky. It'll be in Virgo until the 14th, in Serpens Caput until the 19th, and Ophiuchus until the next meeting. See it as early as you can. It's going to be at its most spectacular as close to the sun as we can see it. The longer you wait, the further it's going to be from the sun, the less spectacular it will be. This is the one everybody's going to be talking about for the next few months, possibly for the next few years if it really gets to third magnitude. So make every effort you can to get out and see it. Comet 13P Olbers is in Virgo. A bunch of us saw it back in the summer. I guess it's still technically visible. It'll be close to the horizon and almost 10th magnitude. So it won't be easy, and it's probably not going to be spectacular. But if you want to boast to your friends who have already seen it that you're one of the gang, it's still achievable. So in memory of my old friend Blake, I always like to bring a double star into one of these. He's the man who got me hooked on them. 70 Ophiuchus is the one I've picked this time. A 4.2 and 6.2 magnitude pair. They're about 7 arc seconds apart, so you want to telescope 6 inches, 150 millimeters aperture or greater. But the reason I like this one is it's got a very fast period of 88 years. So it's moving in 4 degrees of its orbit every year. So every time you get out there, make a very careful sketch of where it is and go back every year for as long as you can keep observing. You should be able to see a significant part of its orbit. And here's a little map. There's the three bright stars up at the top left of Ophiuchus, and then 70 right beside it. I'm hoping that you've all got star maps of your own, but if you don't, you can pop back into this video and see where it is. Now, it wouldn't be my presentation if I didn't talk about variable stars. And T Cephei is the variable star I picked this time. It's a classic Myra long-term variable, and it varies between 6 and 10.3 magnitude over a 388-day period, and it's a very well-settled period. What's happening with it is a dying star, and it can no longer find the balance between gravity and radiation pressure from internal fusion. So gravity will squash it down, the fusion will pick up, it'll puff out again, then the fusion isn't enough to keep it puffed out. So internal fusion fails to keep it full and gravity squashes it down again. It's noticeably red. It's visible all year long from Toronto's latitude. And it is part of the American Association of Variable Star Observers Legacy Observing Program. Now, with long-term variables, tracking them for direct scientific purposes isn't really that useful anymore. There's an awful lot of automated sky surveys that are going to see this more than once every 388 days. But we have a database going back to 1911 when the AAVSO was founded with visual records for this star. And in order to properly calibrate the automated observations with the 100 years of visual observations, they want us to keep observing and reporting visual brightness. That way they can calibrate what the eye sees and what the robot telescope sees. So this is a chance for everybody to contribute some useful knowledge to the world of astronomy. Okay, now this is the one that all the variable star observers are waiting for. T Corona Borealis. Yeah, we're getting 2 variable stars this time. Also known as the Blaze Star. Normally 10th magnitude, but every now and then it have an outburst up to 2nd magnitude. It's a recurrent nova, which means material is being slurped off its giant companion onto the surface of a dwarf. When enough material accumulates, fusion begins and the brightness leaps up by 8 magnitudes. The last time it happened was 1946. It was supposed to happen this summer. When I checked this morning, it had not yet happened. So it's going to happen, and astronomers around the world are eagerly awaiting this exciting opportunity. So I would say, get out there, have a look. It's going to be an easy one to spot. We have a little map of Corona Borealis here. A nice, obvious constellation in the sky. I hope many of us have seen it. If you're looking at it and look to the bottom left corner of it, that's where T Corona Borealis is supposed to be. And when it erupts, it will be the brightest star in that constellation, so you'll know it. If you're the first person to report that to the AAVSO, eternal glory will be yours. So I like to find something in the deep sky. This is the season when M45 comes along, the Pleiades. This is a good beginner object because it's really bright. You can see it with the naked eye right from the city, but get a wide field telescope out to the dark and you can see vast numbers of stars in it. Now, why is it called the Seven Sisters? Well, here, let me show you a picture. As you can see, there are 6 bright stars. So I don't know why it's called the Seven Sisters. It's a mystery. I'd be curious if anybody out there knows why. I've heard all kinds of theories. One star exploded. There was a planet there. I haven't heard anything convincing yet, but I'm curious to know if there's a solid story for it yet. It makes a good visual acuity test. I know people have reported seeing 14 stars rather than the 6 that I can see with the naked eye. My eyes are not great. I'm once again, if you're watching the YouTube channel and you've seen more than 6, let me know. I'm curious. If you're not excited by this thing you've seen a million times, then set up your telescope and see if you can see the reflection nebula mixed up in the cluster. See all those blue streaks all over the place. I've never confirmed seeing it. I've seen something that looks like it, but the odds are higher that my optics are just kind of smudgy. So you need really clean optics to go for this one. Something a little more challenging, NGC 6826, the blinking planetary in Cygnus. It's a 9th magnitude planetary nebula, the shell of a dying star expelling its atmosphere, with a 10.5 magnitude central star. Now, what's neat is when you look directly at this and look directly at the star is bright enough that the nebula around it will disappear. Look away, you'll see the nebula, but probably not the star. So it's kind of a neat little thing about how your eyes manage things in the dark. Yeah, throw in a nebula filter, you'll see it all very nicely. And it's part of the RASC Finest NGC Object Certificate Program. And if people don't know about the certificate programs, I strongly recommend them. They're a good incentive to get out and observe, and they're fun. And you get a certificate and a pin, and everybody admires you as it gets handed out at the meeting. For people who are beyond even looking at a mere planetary nebula, Stephan's quintet is an object I can't see with my own telescope. I can only see it when I borrow someone else's. And it looks like that. It's a cluster of 5 galaxies in Perseus, 4 of them a real cluster, 1 of them just coincidentally in the field of view. NGC 7317, 18A, 18B, 19, and NGC 7320 is the imposter. All around 14th magnitude, well out of the range of my 8-inch telescope, but a challenge for people with a larger telescope and darker skies. 2 of them are closely interacting. If you have a very large telescope or you're imaging, see if you can get the bridge of material between the 2. And 7320, even though it's a faker, it does have a bunch of red H2 star formation regions, which should be imageable and maybe observable if you have a very large telescope. So coming up in the world of spaceflight, we have this perpetual Starliner gong show. The astronauts, last I heard, were stranded on the space station until well into 2025. The last I heard was that Falcon launches are put on hold after a mishap with the last Dragon capsule. And apparently the Starliner spacesuits are not compatible with the Dragon capsules. So we'll see if those astronauts ever get home. Hopefully not too long. I mean, can you imagine, taking a 3-day space flight and being up there for 6 months? Do you bring enough space underwear? Really? Yes, Gilligan's Orbit, someone in the audience shouts out. October 4th, United Launch Association is testing their Vulcan rocket. ESA is launching a Hera mission to the asteroid Didymos, one that was visited a few years ago on October 7th. And on October 10th, NASA is launching the Europa Clipper on its way to study Jupiter's moon Europa, one that I am very curious about. Early November, Blue Origin is going to be launching their New Glenn rocket. At least that's the plan. We'll see what actually happens. And of course, we always have the ISS flying overhead. Heavensabove.com is a place to go for ISS predictions for your local, your own personal location. I still think it's fascinating after all these years to see the space station go overhead. And I'm told that we're very close to the peak number of astronauts in space between the ISS, the Chinese space station, and various other missions going on. Now, if it's cloudy, it does happen. Galaxy Zoo is my go-to place for citizen science projects where you and I get to contribute to science without actually having to be a professional scientist. 4 that I thought looked very interesting: Galaxy Zoo Euclid, images from the Euclid mission that they want you to classify. There are hundreds of millions of objects being cataloged here. They point out on the webpage that the odds are high that you will be the first person to ever look at some of these objects. So there's an interesting project for you. Exoasteroids is one, looking for asteroids around different stars. Cloud spotting on Mars. And the Gaia Very project, the Gaia Space Observatory, looking for objects that have changed over the past few months. So any questions, feel free to email me at andybeaton@gmail.com. I'm on Blue Sky and the RISC Toronto Centre Forum, where I will be happy to answer any questions I can. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Andy. A question about Mars. You said it's 9 arc seconds with an 80-millimeter telescope under a dark sky. Would I be able to see the polar caps?
80 millimeter is not very big. You're not going to get a huge image with that. So I'm going to say...
Just visual?
Yeah, just visual. I'm going to say probably not, unless you're getting a moment of absolutely impeccable seeing. I wouldn't count on it.
Okay, with my 10-inch Dobsonian, will I be able to see it?
Yeah, no question.
No question. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Just scratching my non-clinically diagnosed OCD. On your asteroid slide, you identified 1036 Ganymede. I think there you've added an extra E because it's the same name as Jupiter's moon. It's 1036 Ganymede.
One day I will have a presentation that has no typos in it.
I have
but
no
today
claim
is
for
not the
this
day.
is a fault of mine.
That is almost certainly autocorrect fixing my presentation for me, but you are correct. The asteroid does not have an E in the name. Yes.
Not technically a question, which I suppose makes me a bad astronomer. But if you would like, anyone from RASC would like to apply for 1 meter images of Mars, the time application form is open to RASC, actually RASC Toronto Center in particular. So if you would like to retrieve any of those, it doesn't require you to be certified.
Okay, that's actually fascinating. I would like some.
You can have them.
Okay, I think that's it for questions from the audience. Anyone? No, nope, nothing online. All right, Andy, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for giving me an opportunity tonight to share my power solution journey. Before I start, do want to apologize that last month, because of some technical difficulty, I cannot share the solution, the story last time. And hopefully tonight we're going to have an amazing team in here. And if you haven't seen all the equipment and the intelligent people in here, so come next time and you'll be amazed with this team in here. And also, while I'm doing the presentations, I like interactive, so I'm not sure Tom will like that idea. So if you want to ask me questions, like asking me lots of questions will make me less nervous, and then I will be able to present better as well. Now, if I want to talk about my my power solutions journey, I believe the story will start 40 years ago, and I have to figure out how to do the presentations right here. Okay, so 40 years ago, when I get my first telescope, as usual, it's a very long focal length telescope. So we'll have a fantastic view of the Saturn ring. And then someone eventually showed me an Orion Nebula. And then I take a look at that. It's just so amazing. And so I decide to take out my camera attached to the telescope. And I want to take a photo. So I use a very steady hand, slowly turning the mount and track the nebula. And I did capture the nebula in the with a camera 40 years ago. Now, but I think that's very, very difficult. It is true. Even I get it, it's still very difficult. So I think there must be a better solution. So I go back and talk to the people that manufacture the telescope, and they do sell something what they call a synchronized motor. It's a 110 volt, 50 hertz motor, and the 50 hertz will synchronize with the rotation of the Earth. That's why all you need to do, plug the motor into the outlet. And then because the outlet is 60 hertz, it will turn the telescope according to the rotation of the Earth. However, the place where I got the telescope 40 years ago, they're running at 220 volts, and also is a 50 hertz system. So that means I cannot just plug the motor into the outlet. So what do I need to do? I have to build a customized controller. So the customized controller, I'm designed to build a circuitry which transform a 12 volt power into a 110 volt and 60 hertz AC power. And then I also have a knob in the controller so that I can change the hertz of the output voltage so that it can make the telescope to go faster and slower. Now, what is the amazing state-of-the-art power solution 40 years ago? It is a 12 volt batteries. So it's a shielded lead acid batteries. The size is very small. So how small it is? If you do have a UPS system at home, the battery that used to power the UPS, that is the battery that I'm using. So let's fast forward to today's need for power solution. So there are so many needs to have power solutions in place. For example, you want to observe the same object continuously. You want to use a go-to telescope in the stargazing, public stargazing event. You do want to take some astrophotography and you need power to power all your equipment. And also you may have a lot of other scientific research equipment that you want to power as well. And sometimes you do want to stay warm, and then using power solutions can help you to stay warm as well. So with all this in mind, how about let's get started to build the solutions? But I would say not yet. So I would like to bring the people to think about one thing, which is before you build anything, buy versus build decisions. Because today there are so many solutions out there you can actually buy. So what is the advantages of buying the solutions? It's immediately available. It's a proven solutions because they did a lot of testing and a lot of people are using it already. And also it's serviceability. If it breaks down, you can bring it back to where you buy and then you will get it fixed as well. What's the con? More expensive. I believe it's a perception that it's more expensive. Is it really true? I let the people decide on that as well. Now, what about building your own solutions? And definitely the number one is a customized solutions that you can customize to any your own specific needs. And then you can select the best of the breed component to make the solutions work. And also you can make it cheaper as well. And I believe that is also another perception that we think we can make it cheaper as well. Now, what is the disadvantages of building the solutions? You have to run through a lot of testing. I'm pretty sure if you want to build a solution, the first time it may not work. And so you have to spend a lot of time and figure out what the problem is as well. And also is the reliability. Have you ever imagined that you go out in the dark sky, bring your solutions together, but it didn't work? So building a solution, sometimes you will have these disadvantages as well. Now, what's available for us to buy today? First thing that come to my mind, solutions power tank, and that's the first one that I got introduced to power specifically for telescope and the mount as well. So you can see it on the picture in the top row. That's the Celestron Power 17. Inside the solution is a lead acid battery. It's a 12-volt lead acid battery. And then with that solution, you can see all the other different products out there that you can buy as well. One thing to capture my eye in the first row on the last one, the yellow solutions that you see on the screen, there is a solutions that you have a power drill or a power saw, a cordless power drill saw. You have a batteries. And now you can actually buy a device, an inverter, plug it into the batteries, and then you turn it into a 110-volt solution, and you can start to use it as well. So it's just amazing of like how easy to turn any existing solutions into something that we need. Now, and then in the newer category, which we all talk about right now, nowadays, is the lithium solutions. So most of the solution is building off a 12-volt batteries with the lithium, either lithium iron battery inside or a 12-volt lithium iron phosphate power solution as well. There's so many brands, to name a few, Jackery, ECO Flow, Blue Eddy, those are all very good brands. And there are also other solutions that you can buy from Amazon, which is a non-named brand. Is it going to work? I would say yes, it's still going to work. Am I using it? Yes, I am using one of them as well. But it is cheaper, but sometimes, for example, if my solutions break down right now, I could not find the supplier who can give me service of the power stations that I bought from them earlier. Now, if we want to build it, let's take a look at what the other people is doing as well. So this year I went to the Starfest and then talked to different people and then take a picture of what the other people is doing with their solutions. What you can see on the screen, people using boxes and put the batteries inside and then lots of wire and then trying to run all the different kinds of outlets and power the solutions. And then on the right side, you can see people is using a, I believe is a solar panel solution as well. Use the solar panel, charge up the batteries, and then use the batteries to power all your equipment. Now let's talk about what are the steps that we need to build the power stations. In general, it could be more than this 7 steps, or it could be less. But in my view, like when I doing my solution, these are the steps that I follow. Step number 1, gather the requirements. And then step number 2, based on the requirement, design your solutions. Decide what you need. And then once you know what your design is going to like, the step 3 is to go out and get all the components. Either you buy it or you salvage from your existing equipment or anywhere you can actually get those components from. And then once you get all the components in place, you can start the constructions. And then once you finish the construction, then the first thing is turn it on. Let's see if you can actually get it to work. If not, then you have to do a lot of testing. Once you finish the testing, you may have to go back and modify your solutions, because when you look at it, it just may not exactly fitting what you need. You will continue to improve your prototype until you are satisfied with what you are building as well. And then the last step, everything is now working, everything is perfect, you bring it out to the field and doing the first field test. So I would say when you're doing the first field test, make sure you have a backup solution as well, because it may not work the first time in the field as well. Any questions from the audience here? If not, let's carry on and see what are the, yes, there's a solution. Questions?
So we have a question from the chat, from Zapfan, who just asked, how many watt hours are needed for a night running a telescope?
Okay, how many watt hour I need for one night of operations? In my experience, I operate a reasonable size mount, CGX, which can power 40 pounds of equipment. Running a laptop, which is a laptop that consumes about 45 watt. And I do run some camera as well, so I need batteries to power the camera. I just don't have any dual solutions to remove the dual, which takes a lot of power as well. So for that equipment, I am running 300 watt hour battery solutions, and then it's sufficient to run through the whole night, starting from say 8 p.m. until 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. Okay, so any other question before we flip on and look at details of what the steps are? So number 1, step 1, gather your requirement. So you need to know your own requirement so that you can make the right design decisions. So as the question earlier said, how many equipment do you need to power? What is the duration of your operation? Like how long do you want to stay? And also what the environment is going to look like when you're running your solutions. For example, do you have AC right there available for you to plug in? And then after that, you have to think about how to recharge your power station. Your recharge solution kind of like could be complex as well. And then at the end, do you want a all-in-one solutions, or you want a multi-component solutions as well? So to run through a couple of my requirements when I build my solutions, because all these design decisions do make some implications at the end when you put the solutions together. So my requirement is I don't want all the different components laying around and then bring it to the field and then constructing and connecting it all and trying to expecting it to work. But I cannot afford to have an all-in-one solution as well. So I'm decided to say I want to have a hybrid all-in-one solutions, which is majority in one box, and some of them, some of the bigger component could be outside the one solutions as well. I want it compact, I want it lightweight, and I want it extremely portable as well. I want to maximize my batteries efficiencies, and I want to minimize the power loss as well. And I want to be able to sustain multiple nights of operation, because when I go to camping, I may not have access to electricity to recharge my batteries as well. And also I want it to be easily rechargeable. And one very important thing is I want it serviceable. I don't want to put the solutions together and then when it fell, I have to throw the whole thing again away and then build the solutions again. And then the last requirement for me is very, very important, which is expandable. What does it mean? Is to put the solutions together, but it will be able to accommodate in the future when you have a future need and future change in the requirement. And then you can continue to expand on your solutions as well. So how am I going to do that? Let's take a look at that. Now let's take a look at what the typical decisions you need to design. We do talk about battery solutions. So batteries do come in different standard operating voltages. So usually we deal with 6-volt batteries or 12-volt batteries. But nowadays we can talk about a 24-volt, 36-volt, or 48-volt battery as well. Can I operate a 12-volt operated telescope with a 24-volt battery system? Yes, you can do that. There are components out there which can like bring down the voltage from a 24, 36 volt, or 48 volt down to a 12 volts that you need to operate your equipment. And then you need to decide on what is the battery type that you want your solutions to look like. Do you want lead acid? Do you want lithium iron? Or the latest technology, lithium iron phosphate? You want to decide how many batteries capacity do you need. When we talk about capacity, it talk about how many AH that you need or watt hour that you need. You want to think about, do you want just a DC solution or you want a DC and AC in both solutions as well? You want to think about what type of output that you need. Do you need a 110 volt output that you can plug in an electrical equipment? Do you want a cigarette car connector so that you can easily plug in a car cigarette connector to it? And also you want to think about what kind of input do you need for charging your solutions as well. So at the end, all these kind of decisions will drive what is the battery size, what is the current limit, the aperture limit, and also what is the wire size that you need as well. Now, there is always a misconceptions when we talk about power consumptions and how much of the power I need when I put in a power adapter. For example, people talk about I have a big telescope which drive 50 pounds of equipment compared to a telescope which drive 5 pounds of equipment. The 50 pounds usually it must be taking more power because the power adapter come with that could be like 50 watt or 100 watt power adapter. And so I did a test using my battery solutions, which can show me how much power wattage is consuming. So when the telescope is steady, just the auto tracking, 3.2 watt. And then when I start to turn and move the telescope to point to a particular position in the sky, so the two motors start to kick in, which will increase from 45 volt to 10.5 watt. And when it starts to slow down, that one of the motor is like ready, or is already pointing to the right part of the sky, and only the other part of the motor is driving, continues to driving, it get down to 8.5 watt. Everything settled, computer kicks in, 69.3 watt. And then at the end, when everything settled, I'm back to 3.5 watt. So I am using a 50 watt power adapter to just consuming 3.5 watt as well. Now, we talk about making the design decisions. So selecting the wire size is important. And also, I would say it's very dangerous if you're using the wrong size of the wire for the solutions as well. And because the wire size it drives the high current requirement, which is used to drive your equipment, and a very small, like when we look at the wire size, we talk about the gate size, which is like it could be from 0 gate to 22, 28, even 28. The smaller the number, the bigger of the wire. It's like the magnitude of the star as well, the reverse. So in a typical cases, if you want to drive 10 amps of current, you want a minimum of 10 gauge wire or 10 amp. I actually don't have a 16 gauge of wire as well. Now, and when the wire is depending on the current that is driving through the wire, a higher voltage with the same number of wire will drive the number of voltage is going to be coming out. So that means if you're using the same wire, but then if you're using a higher voltage, it will deliver a higher voltage, voltage as well. And you can see on the middle of the screen in the bottom, those are the chart that describe what is the wire size related to the current requirement that you need for your wire as well. And there's one solution, one options as well, which is when, because of the price of the wire of the copper is high right now, the wire is actually expensive as well. So if you do have access to some like smaller size of the wire, you can put multiple of them together, and then it will give you a higher current. It will be able to handle a higher number of currents as well. As you can see in the middle of the top, I put in the number of putting 6 18 gauge wire. It will turn it into an effective 10 gauge wire, which it can handle 30 amp of amplitude instead of like less than 10 amp. Now we have the wire in place. We have to think about what kind of connector do you need. As a very typical solutions, a lot of people is using this car cigarette adapter, but there are different kind of car cigarette adapter you can actually buy from the internet as well. There are adapters that come with wire, which is you see on the left side of the screen. But I decided that I'm not using that because the wire is basically really thin, which will not be able to deliver the currents that I am looking for, which I need to power, say 300 watt of 110 volt of my AC inverter. So I decide to buy the cigarette adapter without the wire. And then in the middle of the screen, you can see that I will go out and get the clamp connector to clamp the right size of the wire and connect to the adapter. When you're buying all this clamp adapter, you may also have to consider the different color as well, because different color means different size of the wire you can get into the clamp connector itself as well. In the nowadays, we also talk about not only driving the mount, we also have to drive the dual control or the dual controller as well, which you typically is using something you see in the middle and the bottom of the a power plug jack, which is the 5.5 millimeter power jack that you can connect a very small power connector to it and power a dual equipment. Now, why a lot of people also using the car cigarette adapter as well? As you can see on the right side, you need to drive some USB equipment, either USB-C or USB-A. You can actually get a cigarette adapter just plugging into the connector, and then you have a USB power as well. Now we talk about the 110 volt AC that you want to use. With accessing to the 110 AC volt, you basically have access to almost any equipment that you want to drive out in the field. For example, your laptop, your monitor, your telescope mount, the DSLR camera, also like some camping gear as well. The one I'm using is the one on the right side. I select the 300 watt pure sine wave AC adapter. Pure sine wave kind of is a better solution because when you look at your AC outlet at home, those are a sideways curve. And some of the equipment is designed to operate that with the pure sideways curve only. So for the cheaper solutions, non-pure sine wave, sometimes the equipment may not work as well. Now, next thing is getting all the components. One of the major components is the batteries. Where can I buy some batteries? You can go out and buy it. Or think about your old car batteries. So I did talk to the people, they're using an old car batteries and operate for 10 years and it's still working. And also, like nowadays, you may have some unused UPS. So open up the UPS, you will have some lead acid battery inside as well. When we talk about the lithium ion batteries, where can I get them? You can go out and buy them, or you can open up the unused laptop. The battery, a lot of them is coming, is using the lithium ion battery solutions. Also, like think about getting some used hoverboard, e-scooter or e-bike, because those are the ones that can actually nowadays is have the lithium ion battery inside as well. As you can see, there are some very cheap solutions of hoverboard you can actually get off and you can salvage the battery as well. Now, if anyone is using a EV batteries to power your solution, please feel free, raise up your hand, share your experience, post something on the internet and share what you have. And now we get down to the final step, which is like let's constructing all the housing and all the project that you need. So I'm using a 3D printer to print all the solutions. And I go to the website, and then there's a free website. We can actually go in and put in all your 3D design. And once you put in the 3D design, download the printable object, put it into your computer, and you can start printing the components. Now, if you see the left panel and the right panel, you see the 12-volt batteries for the left panel, the 12-volt car battery adapter, and also the right side is for the inverter. And also you see the small square. This is where you can actually do an expandable solutions, which I decided to have a LED extension plugging into all this square box as well. Putting it all together, this is what my solution is going to look like. Now, once you have the solutions, you have to think about how to charge your solutions. For the lead acid batteries, the charging state is a 3-stage charging. In terms of time, I'm going to not going to look at all these like different stages. Lithium ion battery do have a different charging requirement as well, which is a 4-stage. So when you're buying a charger, you can have a plug into the AC outlet and charge your batteries, which is what I have on the right side, that you can charge either the lead acid or lithium ion batteries. Or you can use a solar panel to charge your solutions as well. If you are using the solar panel output is typically around 12 volt to 50 plus volt. You need the solutions to bring the output of the solar panel down to the voltage that is required by your batteries. There are multiple solutions, PWM or MPPM, and I'm going to like go a little bit faster. That I'm not going to go into more detail. But if you do want to know about these solutions, if you have questions, feel free to let me know. Post it on to the forum, and I can try to answer the questions as well. Now, everything now in place. There are a couple tips you want to share with the people that you want to avoid when you're putting your solutions together. Number one, don't short the battery's terminal, because that will create fire. And number two, don't undersize the battery capacity. Think about that when you bring a battery solution, you think it's going to work. 3 o'clock in the morning, the battery die, and then you have nothing to power your equipment. And don't undersize the component and the wire gauge size. As I mentioned earlier, the wire gauge is very important. Make sure you use the right wire size for your solutions. Don't overdrain your batteries, because sometimes it will kill the battery, that you cannot bring it back to life as well. Don't expose the batteries into high heat. It may get fire as well. And don't use the 12-volt battery from your car to power your equipment, because if you do that, it works great in the first half of the night, but then the next morning you may have a problem to start your car again. And one thing that some people may not think about is like, don't expose your battery to extreme cold weather. That's why sometimes we still prefer the lead acid battery over the lithium ion, because the lead acid, they can actually sustain a much colder environment instead of the lithium ion batteries. And the last one that I want to share is, don't underestimate the dark sky and the dangers, because you cannot see any color. Think about that. You reverse the plus and minus polarity and connect your equipment. It will blow up everything. So almost the end of my story. So to finish it up, I want to continue my journey. So recently, some member, they do acquire a batteries, which is a lithium iron phosphate batteries, and the person just cannot charge the battery. So he just don't know what's the best way to do, and so he decided to give it to me. And then I take a look at that. The size of the batteries is actually the same size as I have 40 years ago to power my original equipment, which is the state-of-the-art power solutions. So I decided to turn it into another experiment or prototype. And this is what I get. So 3D printer, free 12 volt car cigarette battery connector. It just looks kind of funny to me right now. So this is what I mean. You will have to continue to improve your prototype to make it better and suit your need as well. And that's my presentations. Thank you, everyone. Any questions?
Questions for Charles? Oh.
Thanks, Charles. That's an excellent presentation. I have a comment to add to your things not to do to batteries. And as you mentioned, the lithium iron phosphate are very sensitive to low temperatures. My experience with them, and I believe it's true, that you cannot charge them when they are below 0 degrees Celsius. They can discharge, they operate fine, but you can't charge them when they get that low. So that's something to keep in mind if you're going to be using this out in the field and look to charge it up with a solar cell in the daytime. The battery has to be warmed. Can't do that. And I agree 100% what you say about using red lights in the field. It's very difficult to see which is the red and the black terminals. So that's a good tip. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks, Tony.
Okay, no other questions in the room and nothing online. Charles, thank you very much again. And we'll go back to the live feed and until we set up for our next presentation. All right, and on our next presentation is Frank Dempsey, and the first of the two will be on Frank's straight light shields, followed by Mercury salt glaciers. Frank?
Okay, thanks, Tom. So the idea here is to make a straight light shield that allows us to block some light when we try to do some deep sky viewing. So the pictures here on the opening slide show some examples of lights that are pestering us when we try to do some observing. So you find a lot of pesky lights that aren't shielded very well, despite the past 20 years of improvements of light shielding. And as far as cars go, my experience is you can't go any place that you can go to try to set up your telescope for dark sky viewing. If you can drive there, so can other vehicles too, and they will. So you may be bothered by headlights. So it's a nuisance. So I built a little shield that you might find interesting, but I suggested it to Paul when he asked for any subjects. So he said, sure, go ahead and do it. I'll just mention a few. I threw this together yesterday, just as a few supporting documents to show why it's important, in case some people are not aware that dark sky viewing requires light adaptation by the eye. And so I just put in one example. I pulled out a log sheet showing a fairly tenuous view deep sky object. May not look like much. You may not even see it there, but some deep sky objects are pretty darn faint, and all you see is a faint wisp. And that's after you've let your eyes become dark adapted. And so if anybody's curious about why do I even bother building a shield and is it necessary, it is because anybody who wants to do visual deep sky viewing has to do something about the light problem. And so I mentioned a few little details that I'll give some more supporting information in case anybody's not really aware of some details. And I guess that a lot of people nowadays are not aware, because I'll see a lot of people doing, we do a lot of public outreach at Pickering, and people I see drive into dark sky viewing sites, and a lot of them are not even aware that people are trying to maintain dark adaptation. and they just drive in with bright headlights on, and their idea might be to get out and take a cell phone picture of whatever you're looking at through a telescope. But it's worthwhile to point out that some details here that to get dark adaptive vision, we need to let our eyes adapt to very low light levels for nearly half an hour. And that happens because some pigments in the retina change as we lower the light illumination. So as we look at darker and darker subjects, we turn off the lights and see the dark sky around us and the dark ground, hopefully no snow on it. Our eyes adapt to lower and lower illumination levels. And retina, one of the photopigments in the retina builds up, and cones and rods are in the eye cells, and cones detect color, and they start to lose sensitivity after light drops a certain amount. As Charles mentioned, referred to the loss of color vision in a dark sky. And after our cones start to lose vision, the rods around the outside of the eye, perimeter of the eye, start to take over, and they detect a lot of the light. So the graph here is a typical one that you might find for dark adaptation, and it just shows that as time goes on, you see about half an hour on the horizontal axis, human subjects being tested for their lowest light they can detect lower and lower illumination levels. And the sky, the vertical axis is logarithmic, so don't get fooled by, you see 6 and then you see a 3 after half an hour, and it looks like maybe they can see twice as well, but it's logarithmic. So actually our eyes can improve sensitivity by a range of thousands over this period of 20 to 30 minutes. So the point is that we want our eyes to dark adapt, and it takes about 20 to 30 minutes. And any exposure to white light rapidly builds up the pigments in the retina that cause the cones to start detecting light, and we have to start all over again. So that means if you're at a dark sky site and the vehicle drives in with bright headlights on, and your eyes are shot even for a few seconds, it takes a lot of time to recover that dark adaptation. So some people are not aware of that. That's my impression from a lot of public outreach, where people just turn on their cell phones and want to take a picture of whatever you're looking at through the telescope. So cell phones, I could mention some other problems too. That I mentioned that any place you can drive, so can other people, and you will drive in with headlights on. But I've seen a silly trend going on at places like Starfest the past 10 years or so, where we can be under a really dark sky and people pull out a cell phone and look out and look at a bright glaring screen while there's a beautiful sky above them. And you see a lot of laptops now, so you try to do some dark sky viewing, and some people have laptops putting out a lot of light, a lot of blue light. Did I mention that red light is the wavelengths that our eyes are least sensitive to? So in the dark, we want to use red lights as much as possible, because they affect our dark adapted eyes much less than the blue or yellow or green wavelengths. So we want to use red light. So we see people pulling out cell phones with blue screens and glaring into the sky and glaring at their own eyes, and they don't seem to care or know. Fine, because if we want to do some deep sky observing and use dark adaptation, I want to set up a shield to block it. So I'm not going to get too upset anymore. We're years and decades past that stage of yelling at somebody to turn off the light. Because nowadays cars, even if you have a car and you want to turn off the lights, a lot of cars you can't do that. You park the car and you turn it off and walk away from it. The headlights stay on for a while, and some people, even if they open the door of the car, the lights come on. So it's quite a nuisance. Can be. I've seen people who are quite conscientious about this problem, and they've tampered with the software in the vehicle to minimize the amount of time that the lights stay on after they open or close the door. So some people are quite conscious of it. However, the problem is not zero. You can't get rid of the problem. So my solution has been to make a shield. And I started a few years ago or more, and I built a fairly big, clumsy shield made out of 3 big panels that were 4 feet wide, and put a tarp over it. It worked fairly well. But with a small car loaded right to the hilt with telescope gear, I look for smaller and smaller solutions. So I just put an example here showing, I know Andy mentioned some deep sky observing certificates you can do, and one on the left, deep sky gems, that's from the RASC Observer's Handbook, in case you don't recognize it. A lot of scribbling, because some I've done and some I haven't. I just took an image of one sheet from my logbook. The one on the right, that looks like the Astronomical League's dark nebula observing program. Just some examples. If you try to observe dark nebula or deep sky gems that are pretty faint, you need dark adaptive vision. You can't do it without it. I showed you a sketch that I made at the beginning of a fairly tenuous faint object, and I wouldn't be able to see it without dark adaptive vision. So it takes a lot of time to get to that stage. And actually, deep sky observing, I'd have to say, is quite a laborious task if you really want to do that, because it means you've got to drive a long way, set up some equipment, spend several hours, and get maybe a few objects ticked off on the list at most. I have to say, probably the worst or most challenging object might have been the Horsehead Nebula, which I heard decades ago was a photographic object only, until I got an H beta filter and looked for it in a very, very dark sky, and I realized, yes, the Horsehead Nebula is visible, but it's the sort of thing used in that example. Can look right at the object where it is, and it's a shadow in a dark nebula. That's what the Horsehead Nebula is, and so can look right at it, and requires deep sky observing. In some cases, requires putting a shroud around my head over the eyepiece. I use a big black T-shirt, so it covers my eyes, and even things like the ground illumination by the starlight can be too bright. One of the scopes I use is pretty good for deep sky observing, but it's an ancient Meade 10-inch f4 Schmidt Cassegrain. It's not a Schmidt Cassegrain, it's got a corrector plate on the front, but the problem is it has a white colored tube. So when I look at the eyepiece and the focuser, there's white around it, so I have to cover the white with darker shield, because even that is too much light. So I'm talking about really dark conditions it takes to observe some objects. So that's all motivation I wanted to illustrate. So so I put in a few slides to give you some idea here, but I thought best way to illustrate this is to show you how many seconds it takes, possibly 30 seconds to set this up, and it's far easier to illustrate it. So I pulled out a tripod. The first one I used, I think it's in the top left, there was some old camera tripod I had lying around, and fine, worked pretty well. I used a C-clamp on it, but I built a few more because I thought, this is so good, such an improvement over the other system I had. I'm going to build 2 more. I actually built the second one, and I thought, it'd be really ideal if I built 3 of them. And so setting up a tripod like this one, I got pretty spiffy, but I'm not going to set it up all the way because it's I don't need it high enough to obstruct my view here, but I'll just open it up part way just for illustration. And you can probably see that the size of this package, got 3 of them now. It's easy to throw 3 of these little bundles into the car, and stick clamps onto it pretty quickly. This takes so long to set up. I can do it in the dark, blindfolded pretty well, and so it would be ideal to have a dark tarp over it. However, plastic garbage bags do a pretty good job, and these are just metal plates. So put one here, and let's get that one approximately level. It doesn't need to be level. One needs to go here, one can go here, and as I said, I can do it blindfolded in the dark, and so this is not exactly what you call a high-tech object. And I guess following on from Charles's presentation, no batteries required. Okay, and so it's done. And so the tripod is not fully extended; it can go a little bit higher, and I can crank it up to a bit higher. But the point is that I think you see in the image on the slide on the lower right, that's one of my scopes. That looks like my 5-inch Mac cast. So it's a handy little telescope, and so I can put the telescope higher for my use with my larger Newtonians, or I can put it lower. So one key feature I've decided that the garbage bags are really good for is it's relatively easy to handle in the wind, because there's rarely wind at night, but there can be wind at night. But I don't worry about it, because if the wind wants to blow, you can go ahead and blow. And the way wind often works at night is relatively calm, and you figure it's pretty nice, but get the odd little gust of wind. So if a gust wants to blow it, fine, who cares? It's only a few seconds that it's possibly not blocking some light. But and if you need thicker blocking material, so far I've found this to be pretty good. It's really easy to put 2 garbage bags here instead of 1. But really, that's all I wanted to illustrate. And you see what a relatively quick solution that is to set up or take down. And that's really what I wanted to illustrate. And I just put in the slides for some background information that may give you some idea why I find it worthwhile. I mentioned I have 3 of these. I brought one. I think I had one final slide to illustrate, and that is the fact that the tripod I started off with originally was fine. One in the top of the view there that was an older slide I used for another presentation. It was fine. I just had a few shots on it. Put this out of the way. And the amount of time it takes to pack this away is almost 20. A scrap plastic bag does a pretty good job. The tripod, I was going to mention the tripod. So I started off with a camera tripod I had lying around, and then decided I should get another one and then a third one. So I realized maybe look online and see. Yes, there are some good ones. There it is. There, the one that I ended up getting. They might call it heavy duty or something. Do they call it heavy duty? Heavy duty tall camera. Okay. I think this is strong enough. Couldn't handle anything more than a cell phone on it. Okay, so I wouldn't trust this to hold more than a cell phone without shaking or vibrating. But they call it heavy duty. So that's fine. But it's heavy duty and does a good job for my application. And it's really really easy to pack away in the dark, put it away. As I said, no batteries required. Just cost a little bit of magnets are probably the more expensive part after tripod. So that's all I wanted to illustrate. So I'm finished with this talk. Any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next one. Okay.
Any questions from the audience? No? Okay. Questions from online?
Online, Dave Atul says, great idea, love it. Zapfan says, I saw someone on a ladder putting a black trash bag over a streetlight to temporarily improve viewing conditions from his backyard. Hot tip.
Yeah, streetlights are a good point. I should have mentioned it because I just mentioned the idea of lights around this vehicles driving into your dark sky observing setup. I mentioned the problem of people with laptops and cell phones, but one way that this is extremely useful at home is for blocking street lights and local housing lights. So I showed on the opening slide some poor but typical house lights or building lights that cause street light, and even if they're far away, they cause a bit of a light coming into your eye. So that's great for blocking street lights as well as other sources of nuisance light. So yes, good point about the street lights. Anyway, I guess we're
okay. So,
Charles has a
Charles.
Thank you. Is it on? Thank you for showing us these wonderful solutions. I do have a questions about maybe my challenge is my neighbor has the lights like the building is actually higher than my backyard. The light is actually coming from above, not from the eye level. So have to think about a solution. What is the solution is going to look like when the light is high above?
Yep, good point. How high is the light source? What do you do about it? So I've set this up because it handles stuff at eye level. Eye level or a little bit higher. I showed I put the tripod a bit higher. My suggestion would be I would use a taller tripod. Now, I have an old tripod that I use for my 80mm binoculars, and it goes probably this high, well above my head. So it's pretty tall. You can get some tall tripods. I would even find a way to adapt. What I would suggest, my first guess, I would take this flimsy tripod I showed you. I would clamp a vertical pole onto it and then put this bar up there. That's what I would do as a suggestion, just to block the street light or the neighbor's light. So that's my suggestion. My first guess would be extend this horizontal bar higher. That's what I would do. Anyway, that's my suggestion.
Just following that up, if you're into photography, if you've ever been to a outdoor photo shoot, just like in an indoor lab, they do they have stands for backdrops, and a photo backdrop. Some of those are like 8 and 10 feet tall. Absolutely no good if you've got any kind of wind, but it would give you would give you good light protection to a high degree. Not a cheap solution though.
No, it's a good point because there's one right behind you. It's a good tall stand. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, actually,
Okay. Yeah, backdrop. Okay, yep.
yeah, actually, do you have a solution for the? Sorry, turn the mic on. Is it on? Okay. Yeah, my homemade solution for the street light is a beach umbrella with a tilting parasol, which will block out the street light and a big chunk of the sky, but give you a pretty wide shadow.
Yep, good point. I'll mention one reason why I titled it Frank's light shields is because other people probably have their own solutions. So maybe it'll spark some discussion online or wherever about other people's light shields. So I just wanted to show mine, what I've done. So that's why I've titled it with that wonderful gentleman's name there. So anyway, I guess we're done, Tom, maybe?
Okay, so we'll just switch back to the camera, or just switch back to the telescope while we set up for the last of Frank's presentations.
So this is try number 2 at live from. Yep. Okay. This is next try at the live from the 1 meter telescope. You actually have now the live view of both telescopes on sky. The 1 meter is finishing up an exoplanet transit on HAT, whatever I said last time, 118 B. And the 60 centimeter is doing the variable star XX Sig, which has a 3-hour-ish period, and is part of the research group. The view from the telescopes, which you're seeing now, is alternating with the view from the computer screen that shows the images coming in. So the technicians are changing them every couple minutes, so you'll probably see both if they stay on long enough.
Okay, so oops.
Frank, try and make sure you're talking into the microphone.
Okay, yeah, I adjusted it after the last one, so I will try. Is this okay? Sound is okay here? Okay. Oh. Go ahead now. Okay, so the title mentions Mercury's salt glaciers, and so this is one subject, one little topic of many that I thought might be pretty interesting. And Paul said, "Yeah, let's do that." So, the illustrations here just illustrate some typical pictures of Mercury, which you may have seen, and so you get the impression it's a cratered, barren, dry surface, and that's what we expect from Mercury. We've known it to be pretty darn hot, a pretty hot, barren world. So that's fine. However, this is a discovery that was announced about a year ago in some research, which I'll point out in the next slide here. But as far as salt glaciers go, the picture on the left shows one of the basins on Mercury that's known to be a volcanic lava sort of illustration that you might also find on the moon or on Mars. But this is on one of our Mercury's basins. And on the right, you see an example of one of the salt glaciers on planet Earth here in Iran. So if we're okay there, I'll continue. So this was a discovery that was announced about a year ago. Title, Unveiling Mercury's Geological Mysteries, Salt Glaciers, Primordial Atmosphere, and the New Frontiers of Astrobiology. So those points I thought were really darn interesting, and they're just one of many, many announcements you can find in any astronomy or science magazine. You can find pages of recent news announcements, and this is one little paragraph. So I thought this is pretty darn interesting, and Paul said, yeah, go ahead and do that. So if I say who cares and why do I get excited over it, it's because we thought that Mercury's surface was really inhospitably hot, and it's over 400 degrees Celsius on the sunlit side. And Now it's been found that subsurface glaciers may possibly be hospitable and habitable for life if some form of life exists there. So I think that's pretty darn interesting. And the illustration just shows some of the chaotic terrain on Mars. Here it's near the North Pole, and this is the little area that was analyzed in the paper that I just showed you. So it's just one of several areas on Mercury that's known to be so-called chaotic terrain, and used to be believed to be a volcanic outflow area. So I'll point out a few little details that I think are worth sharing and making it worthwhile to talk about here. So I mentioned that the Messenger spacecraft discovered some subsurface layers rich in volatile compounds, and that includes salts. So just to explain volatile compounds, they can change from liquid to gas and back to liquid, back to solid fairly easily, or generally environmental temperatures. Just this is a very general term for volatile compounds. I mentioned that previously we thought that volcanic activity caused the chaotic terrain on Mercury and some other planets. But now it looks like it's more likely, according to that research that was announced, that the chaotic terrain is more likely caused by viscous glaciers of salt compounds. So they flow and ooze in certain conditions and cause some. So it's sort of illustrated here on this lower right. There may be better images, but it may also illustrate some tiny pits that are also associated with this. And so it was considered that because of these little pits, that's not really a volcanic outflow situation. And furthermore, there are some so-called ghost craters. They may have shown up better on the previous picture, that one on the left. Ghost craters are also visible on the moon. So if you do lunar observing, you see that there are some ghost craters where all you see is the outline rim of an ancient crater that's now covered by lava. And so that would be fine if the lava covered all the craters as well. However, you see these fresh pits blasting out. And so the researchers on that paper decided that they are caused by volatiles blasting out. So most likely source is asteroid impacts that cause those volatile outbursts. And so it looks more like these are glaciers of salt and volatile material. And so glaciers are just a very general term. It may consist of rock, clays, salts, and volatiles. So on Earth, we may call them water ice glaciers, but I showed you an example of a salt glacier in Iran. And so here it's been found that salty layers may be several kilometers deep. That's what the researchers in that paper estimated, several kilometers depth through salt layers. And so they decided there's quite possibly habitable niches deep underground that may host conditions where life may possibly exist. That's what I personally find pretty exciting. So that's why I thought it'd be worthwhile to talk about this for a few minutes. So that's Mercury. So I thought I should mention a few other details about life and possibility for astrobiology. So I'll just put in a few slides about what is life. And so if we start off just restricted to microbial life, it survives on a gradient in energy. So you got that most planets where there's some difference in energy they can survive on. Maybe carbon chemistry involved that may develop into what we call organic chemistry with more complex compounds. Illustrated one at the lower right, which is just some amino acids which are part of the basis for life on Earth. There may be water and water ammonia mixtures for solvents for that life. Doesn't have to be water. It is water on Earth, and life requires a long time environmental stability. So the point there is that the researchers estimated that those salt layers could have existed for billions of years on Mercury. So it's not just a brief transient phenomena. So all of these conditions seem appropriate where we could possibly expect some form of life. I'm just restricting it here to microbial life, but of course, life on Earth is vastly more complicated. When we talk about lipid membranes around cells and they have to communicate with each other, and they rely on a lot of really interesting electrical properties to have calcium and potassium gates to transmit gradients across cell membranes to allow life to metabolize and survive. A few details about life on Earth. I just mentioned here extremophiles, just restricting it to bacteria and microbes found in some really strange environments, really, really hot, really cold, high pressure, strong ionizing radiation, very dry, very saline, very acidic and alkaline. So these are all spots on Earth where life has been found. So these extremophiles have been found to exist on Earth and all these locations. I won't read them off because I just did. However, the point for Mercury is that could there possibly be life could have developed on the salt glaciers deep underground where they're protected from things like radiation, strong temperature changes, and so on. So I like to think it's exciting to imagine, yes, maybe. So that's what I find exciting about it. And that's why I'm presenting this. So I think we're just about done. Did I throw in another? Oh, yeah. So if I say Mercury, is there any other place where in the solar system where we could find some extreme forms of life? And yes, I think so. So you may recognize these pictures, you may not, but just to mention a little bit about each of them, Venus, maybe the surface is only pretty darn hot and pretty darn acidic. However, in the atmosphere, at a certain level in the atmosphere, a certain layer, it's quite possible where life could possibly exist at a certain height where pressure is not too drastic. Chemistry is just right. There is chemicals that could support life. I think there's an upcoming mission to possibly get launched to look for that that possibility. Mars, I wouldn't say too much about it because there's already a lot of information and news already about Mars and latest research, latest discoveries, and so on. In fact, I'll mention one in the magazine here. But Pluto, pretty darn far away from the sun, and is it a planet? Don't want to argue about that. The point here is that nitrogen glaciers have been found on Pluto. It's been found to be a really interesting world with a lot of interesting geological and chemical features on it that may possibly allow some form of life to survive. Even more exciting are the moons Europa and Enceladus, a moon around Jupiter. That's interesting. So want to watch for developments because I think the satellite, the ESA satellite called JUICE is on its way toward Europa, and the NASA satellite called Europa Clipper. Did you mention that one, Andy? I did, and it's launching when? Next month? October 7th. Pretty soon, anyway. Pretty soon. So Europa Clipper will be hopefully on its way soon toward Europa to look for life because it's very interesting. Europa, just a very brief, and Enceladus, water oceans underneath a layer of ice, and so water is now known to be possibly existing everywhere in our galaxy, whereas 20 years ago it was considered only on Earth, and water to be found outside of Earth was pretty rare. But now we understand that water is everywhere, so including the oceans of Europa and Enceladus. I mentioned Sirius. Sirius, pretty small planet. It's only about 1,000 kilometers wide, but it's got a lot of water on it. And it was found about 10 years ago by Dawn spacecraft to have some very interesting geology and salts and other chemicals that may support life. So I think the last one, yeah, I mentioned stay tuned. I just wanted to mention that if I just look at, pick out any magazine, in this latest astronomy magazine, there's half a dozen pages about news and so on. Let me just read from this one page, 2 items here that are related to possibility of life on other planets. So the title says it all. Mars rock could have signs of life. And the other one, Titan seas have tiny waves and tidal currents. So all of, there are discoveries every month about possibilities of life on other bodies in our solar system. So this one is just another one. And it's just another intriguing view of the potential for life, not on Earth and not in the usual rock, water, atmosphere, Goldilocks zone exoplanets, where it's considered that water may be just the right temperature to allow life. I think it's more likely that we can find life in other spots besides those watery ocean exoplanets. So stay tuned. I mentioned just looking at Mercury, Messenger spacecraft went there about 10 years ago, and Bepi Colombo is on its way now. It's scheduled to arrive at Mercury in November 2026. So that's the presentation. So Tom, I guess we're ready for any questions or comments.
Right. So any questions from the audience? No? None from online? All right, then. Frank, thank you very much for both those presentations. We'll quickly flip back to the live feed from the telescope, and then we'll have the final announcements for the evening.
If you want, I can So the it looks like you've got the view from the 1 meter. Oh no, okay, okay. So back to the live from the 1 meter telescope. This is the last of that transiting exoplanet that we had up earlier. Now showing the actual computer view rather than the view of the telescopes themselves. Because it's finishing up a research project, we can't let people just wander on in tonight, but we do have a bunch of telescopes over on top of the Arboretum parking garage, including the 40 centimeter, which used to be in the 1 meter dome, if you know your observatory history, before 2019. And a bunch of the small telescopes, a small flock of tiny telescopes are out there. And I've just checked with our observers; they have left them all open for you guys to enjoy. So it's just Arboretum parking garage rooftop, 5th floor.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. And let's get through the announcements this evening. So for those of us, or those of you joining us live on YouTube, this is one of two types of meetings that we have. You've just seen one of our recreational astronomy nights, and in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have one of our speaker nights. For those of you joining us live on YouTube, please use the YouTube chat to say hello, enter some questions for presenters. If you're a new member, please introduce yourself. And if you're coming to us from well outside the Toronto area, please let us know where you're coming from. So our next recreational astronomy night is in a month's time on the 6th of November, 7:30 p.m. in person and online. In person here at York University. Arnold Brody will be talking the sky this month, and we have 2 more presentation slots available. Please contact Paul Markov if you'd like to present something. And just a reminder for those of you, our new home at York University, please come and join us. We're in room 317 of the Petrie Science and Engineering Building. That's just down the hall from the Alan I. Carswell Observatory. So when you get to the Petrie building, just follow all the signs for the observatory. And then when you get to the observatory, there's a sign pointing the way down the hall for us. Full directions to the Petrie building plus details on transit and parking are on our website. So our next speakers night is Wednesday, the 16th of October, 7:30 p.m. online only though. Cassio Bond, physics candidate from York University, will be talking about galactic archaeology, exploring the galaxy's history with chemical abundances. So live here on YouTube. And then coming up events in and around the Toronto area over the next month, City Star Party for members will be at Baby Village Park on the first clear night of October 7th to the 10th, excluding the Wednesday. So it's the first clear night of Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Please check our website for a go, no-go decision based on the weather. At Millennium Square in Pickering is a public stargazing party on Friday, October 11th from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Please join us down by the lake for an evening of free public stargazing. Observe the moon and stars through our telescopes, check out the astronomy lit we have, and ask us some questions. Even bring your own little telescope if we'll be happy to help you set it up and aim it at the moon. Just a reminder that it's usually cooler down by the lake. And again, please check our website for a go, no-go decision based on the weather before heading down to the square. Also, Ajax Pumpkinville is coming up in a few weekends, and there'll be some solar observing going on there. It's at Greenwood Conservation Area, 20 to 80 Greenwood Road in Ajax on Saturday, October the 19th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Coming up at the David Dunlop Observatory over the next few weeks, Saturday, October the 12th from 8:30 to 10:30 p.m. is Astronomy Family Night. Registration fees are as seen here, and the links to register online can be found at rasto.ca. Speakers Night coming up at the DDO on Saturday, October the 19th, Dr. John Moore's Daydreaming in the Solar System, Exploring the Planets with Our 5 Senses. Again, registration fee is as shown here, and links to registration are on our website. And then wrapping up the month is Sunday Sun Gazing, Sunday, October 27th, 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. at the DDO. Again, registration fee is as shown here, and links to register online on our website. The Carr Astronomical Observatory is open. Operations are largely back to as things used to be back in the before times. Masking in the common areas, though, is encouraged, but the preference of the people in attendance will be taken. Please see the CAO bookings page for details on our website. And also, the fall work party is this weekend. Tony, do we have any spaces left? No? Okay, so we all are booked up. Sorry about that. But yeah, work party this weekend as a reminder. So for those of you who have already signed up, thank you very much. And just a reminder on that point that the Toronto Centre runs on volunteer energy. If you're a Toronto Centre member and interested in helping, if you've got any free time, please give a shout out to the volunteer coordination team. We'd love to have you. And on that note, we have signed up with Benevity, so we're to receive charitable donations. So if you're a volunteer and your employer has signed up to make contributions for charitable work, please let us know either at president@raskto.ca or treasurer@raskto.ca. And one final note regarding volunteers, I'd like to give a shout out to our new Light Pollution Abatement Committee Chair, Pavel Krasnopolsky, my apologies, is our new chair. He's in the room tonight. I'd like to give him a round of applause. Pavel also gets the additional fun fact that the job title is also known as Prince of Darkness. We look forward to working with you, Pavel. And this is the point where I get to plug the joys of Rask membership. So you can sign up or renew your membership at secure.rask.ca. And gift memberships for the upcoming holiday season are also available. Contact the national office, mempub@rask.ca. And now for what's probably the most important part, the meeting after the meeting. We'll be joining shortly to the Timbers Lodge Social Grill, which is over in York Lanes. We're here, and then walk down the campus walk into York Lanes, and it's at the west end here. Timbers Lodge Social Grill. We'll be heading over in a few minutes. Short walk from the Petrie Science Building, and it's near the York University subway station. So please, those of you in the audience, come and join us. Or alternatively, as Elena was saying, there are telescopes on the parking garage that she'll point out if you're really want to do more astronomy this evening. Okay. Okay, so easily you can do both because the telescopes are only for 15 more minutes. Okay. And for everyone else, have a pleasant evening. Thank you very much for joining us. You can follow us on all the forms of social media we've got listed here. For those of you who have joined us and watched it live on YouTube, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you liked what you've seen. Stay safe and keep looking up. Good night, everyone.